Ever waddle to the bathroom after sex, towel between your legs, desperately trying to keep the freshly delivered load from dripping down your leg and onto your hardwood? Well, worry no more. Awkward Essentials introduces the Drip Stick, or as I like to call it, the cum sponge. This medical-grade sponge sucks up jizz before it sneaks onto your sheets. Visit awkwardessentials.com today and use my code, WYP, for a 10% discount. They offer numerous products for all types of fun fluids. Keep your shorts semen-free and use my code today. That's WYP and save 10%. Awkward Essentials, making bodily fluids less awkward.
What's Your Position podcast may contain adult themes, sexual discussions, and strong language. We want everyone to be educated, but we are intended for a mature audience. Listener discretion is advised. On today's episode, we'll be discussing military wives and marriage. Oh, wait, the joke. You're going to have to cut that part out.
It's okay.
Nope, we're not cutting it.
Oh, wait.
That in.
What's long and hard and full of semen?
A submarine?
Yeah, a submarine. And now,
Submarine.
with love from Huntington Beach, your host, Ashley Weller.
Go.
Welcome, fellow human, to another episode of What's Your Position? That was a good joke.
Thanks.
That's on.
I thought it was topical.
It's on brand.
I was going to make an Ocean's Gate joke.
That's what I was thinking of.
Oh, no.
Works for many reasons.
It does. Oh, that is very topical. My goodness. Welcome to a full frontal episode all about military wives, spouses, and marriages. We have joining us again, thankfully, Courtney, who was on an episode previously talking about her brand new book, Not Tonight, Honey. And she had so much interesting information about who she is, what she does for a living outside of being an amazing author. She is also a coach, and she's going to explain that in just a minute. But she talked about military wives, and it sparked something in my brain. We have a mutual friend, the person who recommended you to this podcast, who has a military husband, and you yourself are married to a service member.
Yes.
And I wanted to talk about it at the same time that you talked about your book, but I was like, no, that's a whole ass episode. Like, that's an entire episode in and of itself, talking about being in the military. And it's something that I'm not familiar with. I don't have any family that served where it affected me in any way. Mm-hmm. Like, my stepbrother is still in the Marines, but that doesn't affect like my day-to-day life.
Sure.
My dad was never in the military. My mom was never in the military. I've never dated anyone in the military. So it's just so interesting to me. And I think that there's a lot of listeners who will get a lot out of a conversation surrounding a topic like this. So I really appreciate your willingness to come back and your vulnerability talking about this. So
thank you so much for having me, Ashley. I'm excited to be here.
So tell us a little bit about what you do as far as being a coach.
Sure. So I am a trained mental health and sex therapist, life coach, and Reiki practitioner. And so essentially what all that means is I've been trained in the traditional Western evidence-based approaches. I have 2 master's degrees, and then I've also been trained in some more energy Eastern approaches. And I meld a traditional therapy approach with coaching and help individuals and couples infuse passion and purpose back into their lives.
That's incredible. Holy shit. How many couples are you coaching right now?
Oh, let's see. So five couples right now. And then I also work with individuals too. So,
and you do, evidence-based marriage therapy, but you also do holistic and like working with different theories. What theory do you tend to utilize the most, do you think? Which one do you go back to the most?
Gosh, I mean, I would say I'm not trained in marriage and family therapy. I'm trained in mental health counseling, but a lot of times couples will come to me with issues in communication, lack of sex in their relationship. And so I like to use a combination of, lots of them, CBT, internal family systems, I do some NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. I do some motivational interviewing. It just kind of depends on what the couple's needing.
What do you think is one of the most common reasons that couples seek counseling?
The next phone call is a divorce lawyer. So they seek it with me. They may for other reasons, but in my experience, it's usually like we have tried everything on our own unsuccessfully. We really don't want to get a divorce, but that's pretty much where it's headed. And so we're going to make one last ditch effort to try to save the marriage by going to see a professional.
That's some freaking pressure on.
Oh yeah.
On you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I always tell couples,
save us.
yeah,
Man.
I always tell couples, I say, hey, I get it. This is a tough spot to be in. If you're not willing to put in the work, like I'm trying to gauge your motivation, just save us all a lot of time and money and energy and just call the divorce lawyer. Because if you're at that point, it's like coming to a personal trainer when you need to lose 100 pounds versus like 20 pounds. And so when you wait till you need to lose 100 pounds, it's going to cost you more time, money, energy, and all of the things. And it's not that it's not possible, right? I can help.
What a great way to reframe that for people.
And I guess it would be really challenging when 50% of the couple is invested and the other is not.
Can you usually tell if there's one that's more?
One's like, save this marriage, and the other one's like,
I don't give a shit.
Care.
Yeah.
Can you tell when both are invested? Can you see like when both people are present and you know that this is going to, I can tell that I don't have I have my work cut out for me, but this one's going to be a bit easier. Like I can tell I'm going to have an easier time with this couple.
Yeah. I always say I cannot work with, I can help save marriages in any condition, but the one thing I can't work with is apathy. So if I have one of the person who's like, you know what, like, I just don't care anymore. Like, he's a great guy. I wish him the best. I can't, like, hate, rage. Yep. I can work with that all day long, but apathy, like completely just like, meh. I can't. Like, there's no.
If there's hate, that means there's love because there's an emotion.
Yes.
There's something there.
Yes. People think that the opposite of love is hate. And I believe that the opposite of love is indifference.
Oh, wow.
Damn.
Yeah.
They just don't care.
I'm like tearing up right now. What percentage of families or marriages or individuals do you work with that are in some sort of branch of the military or are married to someone in the military?
Oh gosh, I would say that they're connected usually to, I'd say 50% have some type of connection. Either they're a DOD, like civilian. So that means that they're not active duty, but they still work within the government, or they're like related. A lot of my business is from referrals. And so somebody referred like,
makes sense.
Work with your mom. Oh, now I want to work with you. I want you to work with my son. And now I want you. And so, I'd say a significant, about 50%.
So I have a statistic of the day.
Okay.
It's the stat of the day. So research shows those in a military career, so basically individuals working in any branch of the military, whether they are deployed or whether they are just, they stay here, they work in an office, they work for the Department of Defense, like you say, but those with a military career have the highest divorce rates of any career.
Wow.
In 2019, 3.9% of people in the field of military had gotten a divorce within that year, which is how much more than any other field? Is it doubled, tripled, quadrupled?
I don't even know. That's tripled?
I think it's tripled.
3.9% of individuals working in the military got a divorce last year, which is how much more than a civilian getting a divorce? How many more civilians or how many 3.9% of marriages last year? It's such a hard statistic to read.
Yeah, it's not hitting my ears the way I'm not quite comprehending it. So she said triple. I said triple. I'm going to go with that.
Okay.
I think double.
Okay. Triple, and double. So you think that the military divorces are triple the amount of any other career?
Sure.
Yes.
And you think they're doubled?
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. If you're listening and you understood what the fuck I just said, you go ahead and think of yours as well. And don't let me forget to do the stat at the end. Okay. All right. Is this something that you have noticed in your field, that military marriages end in divorce more than civilian marriages?
Yeah, I would say, yeah. I mean, I know, gosh, that's hard. Because usually what will happen is, yeah, I'll just, for the short answer, yes, I will say yes.
And there's so many different reasons why. So 92% of military spouses are women. So 92% of military spouses are women, which means that the majority of people in the military careers are men and they have spouses. 53% of those women participated in the labor market. That means that women who are military wives, military spouses, it's difficult for them to get and further a career. So
100%.
They aren't being fulfilled by a job because they have to pack up and move whenever that person is being moved. So you can't put roots down. You can't say, I'm going to be in this career and further myself in this career because you don't know when you're going to leave.
If you leave every year, 1 or 2 years, I mean, and say an executive position would take you 5 years to work for whatever, I don't know.
Making partner at a law firm, making tenure as a professor,
out of the question.
And then because you're moving, you lose friends everywhere you go. You lose your social circle.
Yep.
Ouch.
True.
And then you are a single parent if you have children.
You get deployed for a year.
And you're just a single mom.
That's crazy.
Without a social support, without a job.
You know, I've heard those, there's those jokes. I've seen them on like TikTok and Instagram, like where military guys always get cheated on because.
Well, hold the phone because then you have to go without sexual intimacy and feeling desired and feeling wanted while your partner's away. And you can't even engage in anything that makes you feel intimate because a lot of spouses don't communicate about what their needs are. And this person, 92% of spouses are wives. So I'm going to go with that. So these wives can't have a job, can't have friends, single parents, they're lonely as fuck, and they're horny as fuck.
Yep.
Yeah. What could possibly go wrong with that combination?
Right.
Did I miss anything?
I'm just like formulating in my head where there's this woman where she's bouncing around to a new city every year. She goes to a new city. She has no friends. She can't find a job. She's kind of down. And then some dude walks into her life in some capacity and is like, hey.
Sees, can pick out the the wounded wildebeest, out of a crowd of people and go over to her and be like, oh, your husband's deployed. Oh, I know about the Army. Let me talk about it. Courtney, you want to guess which branch of the military has the highest divorce rate?
Ooh.
The Marines.
Anyone else want to guess?
That's what I would go with.
Yeah, probably.
It's the Army because they have the special reserves.
Oh, the special forces.
The special reserves have a 90% divorce rate among them.
Interesting.
So, Courtney, I would like for you, if you could, to tell me about what it's like to be a military wife. How old were you when you met? Did he know he was going to go into the military? Was that something that you had to discuss before you got married? How old were you when you got married? Answer those 12 questions and then we have some more.
Yes. Let's see. So I grew up really religious. So I got married young. I'd get married at 22. My husband was 21 and
Cougar.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I know, right? I'm 5 months older than him. And so he had applied to medical school and then got into medical school. And then when he was in medical school, talked to a recruiter, and then he joined the Army his first year of medical school. And so then
And they paid for his school.
They paid for medical school. Correct. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So did he join because he wanted his school paid for, or because he wanted to join the Army?
No, because he wanted to join the Army. So his grandpa served in World War II and received a Purple Heart. And so he was really close to his grandpa. And that was one of the ways that he felt connected by joining and wanting to serve. So, was there an incentive?
Yeah, for sure. Did he go into the Army as something medical? So was he like working in the military hospital, or did he get deployed and was like the medic on site?
Yeah. So medics are different than doctors. And so when you're in medical school, you join and you go to officer basic training for like 6 weeks or 8 weeks during one of your medical school summers. But then when you finish medical school, you're expected, typically, sometimes there's exceptions, that you go and you do your residency at a military training hospital. So there's certain hospitals in the US where you can go and do internal medicine residency or dermatology or surgery. And and then from there he went on to do a fellowship because he's a specialist. And then from there you get placed at a different,
what does he do?
He's a pulmonary critical care physician. So he does lungs and the ICU. No, lungs.
Pulmonary.
Hi. Yeah.
Hello, smart.
It's okay.
Smart person over here.
It's lungs. Okay. Yeah. So he does lungs and the ICU.
Oh, all right. Mm-hmm. Did he get deployed? Did he go?
Yes. Mm-hmm. So he was deployed actually during COVID, during 2020. And so we're stationed in Germany. And that was really one of the hardest things I've ever been through, was being in a foreign country where the borders were closed, and Germany was really strict on like lockdowns and fines and like no socializing. And he was
Where was he?
He was in Africa for 7 months.
Dang.
Mm-hmm.
What country?
What country in Africa?
He was in Somalia.
Okay. So when you met your husband, you guys, you didn't know he was going to go into the military.
No, there was no discussion about that. Nope, absolutely not.
Okay. So when he signed up, did he take that and did he ask your opinion on the matter?
Yep.
And what did you consider? I mean, you're in your 20s. So what did you really know about the military? And
I was 23 years old. Had no idea. I was like, the recruiter did a great job. And at first the statistics show that most people just fulfill their commitment. So most people who do have the military pay for their medical school or their nursing school or whatever, they'll do like the 4 years. So they pay for 4 and then you owe 4 and then you're out. And he decided to do a specialty. So then that adds more time. And then you're at, so now we're at 13 years and, we could have gotten out a few years ago, but we wanted the opportunity to move to Europe. And so that was kind of a bargaining thing back to your question of, I was up for an adventure. I was like, hey, I can work. I knew that I wanted to work and help people. I was in graduate school at the time. And so I knew that I was going to be a therapist in some capacity, and I was like, oh, it can't be that hard. I was so naive because every state has different licensure requirements.
Yeah, you can't get licensed in California and go be a therapist in Colorado or Germany for that matter.
No, you cannot. Yes.
So then you had kids.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this whole time, he's in the same place. He didn't leave, right? Like he's going to school in the same place. And then he did 4 years. During that 4 years, did you guys move around?
No. So for med school, he was at Indiana University for 4 years, and we had our first kiddo there. And then for residency for internal medicine, we were stationed at Madigan, which is in Tacoma, Washington. And we were there for 3 years.
Shout out to my homies in Washington.
I know. Yeah, that's where I'm from.
That's why we know each other. It's just a small little world. It's crazy.
And then you
got to go back home.
Yes, it was, which was great because I had my other two kids there and my parents were like 45 minutes from me and
that's nice.
It was so, which is why he ranked Madigan as number one. So, but then when my youngest was 5 weeks old, we moved to San Antonio, Texas for his fellowship. And that was
5 weeks old.
weeks old, a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
We knew one couple in the entire state of Texas when we moved there. And that was,
Jesus.
Oh man, that was hard. Yeah.
So then tell us just a couple fun little quirks about being a military wife that people may not realize. I have one that I'm going to start with that
please do.
I found. Yeah. So apparently, please tell me if this is bullshit or folklore. There's a manual that you get if you live on the base or if you are military. There's a manual that explains to you how to be a good military wife. And one of the sections is about going, and this may not apply to you because, well, they have a ball, don't they? Because the Marine Corps has a ball.
Yeah.
So it's the Marine Corps ball handbook, and it tells women no cleavage.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yes. Also, never speak while your husband is speaking.
Okay, I haven't
always show respect to your husband. And then there's also this crazy thing that people don't realize, but your social circles are based on your husband's rank. So who you're allowed to be friends with, but who you're friends with is based on your husband's rank in his military section.
That's weird.
Okay, so let me address I know that there is a manual somewhere. We've never lived on base before or post, so it depends. So base is if you're Air Force, people will typically say, I live on base or you're going to base. Post is the exact same thing. It's just the Army term for it.
Okay. So, and they said, because it was on base. She was like, I can't leave the house if I'm not, I can't leave the house in my leggings or my pajamas. Like I can't go outside in pajamas. If I'm going to get gas or going to run to the store to get milk, I have to be dressed and ready outside. And they have to know the ranks of people because if high ranking people walk by them, they have to stop what they're doing and not salute because they're not in the military, but they do have to show, they have to know what all the stripes mean. They have to learn this different language. It was crazy.
So I'm assuming that there's probably different degrees of how much this, because I had a friend that told me something kind of similar about the friend circle that you could have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it could be kind of funky.
So there's two, there's the enlisted and then there's the officers, and it's frowned upon to have fraternization, which is where you have, officers and enlisted people conversing. There's no real, as if one of my friends, her husband is enlisted and we've been really good friends for 4 years, and we've had them over, he's Air Force, we're Army. There's no crossover. He's in a completely different field. So we'll still socialize with them, but there is an unwritten kind of expectation, especially the higher ranking you go, you're not encouraged to socialize with people if they're enlisted and you're an officer.
I mean, that makes sense, though. I mean, it's similar, in just an occupation, a career. If you're a manager, you shouldn't.
Oh, that's fair.
Hang out in certain capacities and stuff like that. So it makes sense, though. That does make sense.
If you're an officer. Okay. I already know what. That's a good way to fucking put it, husband. All right. Another thing that people find interesting that may be civilian, I'm going to say civilian, even though I think that's the right term.
Yeah,
right?
It is. Yep. Non-military.
Muggle.
Yes, also accurate.
So shut up. Another thing people may not understand is Kevin and I, when we come home from work, we get to talk about how our day is. And for individuals in the military or working in the Department of Defense, that's not always possible.
Correct.
You have to completely I feel that goes for first responders too, though. People whose spouses are policemen and firemen, they probably don't come home and talk about the robbery that they helped stop. But I think that's just something that not a lot of people understand, is that you can't really talk about your job. And then another thing that you don't really understand is that if your husband or wife is deployed, you constantly are worrying that they're not going to come home. And you have to, people drive. So that's a scary thought, but like, that's war. Like your husband or wife is deployed in a country where there's the potential for combat. Yeah.
Right.
Has your husband ever faced combat?
He's been in active wars like areas, but as a physician, they do not put them on the front line.
Yeah.
But he was deployed with like special forces, like Navy SEALs and stuff. So he was definitely in like a live or a combat zone. Yeah.
Oh. Knowing the things we talked about earlier, the loneliness, the constant uprooting, the single parenting, you know, you can't make plans. I mean, it's
that's so funny. No, you can't.
Yeah. Holidays and birthdays are just days on the calendar at that point. Because you're just, it doesn't matter that it's Mother's Day or your birthday or your fucking anniversary.
Nope.
And then also the loneliness, like intimate loneliness of those. What do you hear most from your clients as being like the toughest thing to get over, or the one that they have the hardest time coping with?
I think it's the emotional disconnect from their spouses, from their partners. It's their a lot because they have to be a lot of service people. I would say a lot of, since most of the military is men, a lot of men lack emotional intelligence, and they just have not been raised with the skills to communicate and to be aware. Well, one, to be aware of their feelings, and then two, to communicate those feelings.
And then they're in this hyper masculine environment.
Yes. And then in a place where shouldn't talk about certain things.
Or be emotional. You're a robot when you are in war.
Yeah,
like,
you are.
Because if you absorbed all of those emotions that you were experiencing in combat, you would implode. So you have to become closed off in order to save yourself from feeling those feelings then. I'm imagine, please, anyone who's listening who is active service or no longer active service, I thank you for your service. And I don't mean to presume or speak for you. I promise. I'm just assuming that this is what's happening.
Yeah. I mean, it's a self-protective mechanism, right? You can't be feeling for the people that you're bombing or the people that you're, like going and invading or whatever, liberating, there has to be this disconnect as a way to survive. But then that, if you don't repair that and work on that, then that also applies to your interpersonal relationships as well.
Oh, I can imagine too, if you're active and you sign up at 18 and you spend a tour or two in Afghanistan or Iraq or whatever.
That is shaping your brain.
Well, yeah, those are like the really formative years of how when you're becoming an adult and learning how to deal with just life in general. And I feel like that kind of takes you out of that development because you're like the military conditions you to be something, definitely not an emotional being.
No.
So it's like you come back and you're like, okay, now where did I leave off when I was just a normal person at 18 years old?
Not only that, but it's time travel. Like your husband comes home and your kids are huge. Like he time travels and he misses moments. Then like you're trying to have these inside jokes. Oh my God. Do you remember when Bobby fell on the fireplace and said, "Oh fuck." And we all laughed because he's only 2. Like, no, you don't. Cause you weren't here. And like, do you remember that Christmas? Oh, that's right. No, cause you weren't here. So I would imagine that emotional connection is what's missing. How do you help, your clients work on that part of their relationship, that emotional connection?
Yeah, I think to help the individual, this person that is struggling with that, to start to be aware that that's what's happening. I think a lot of times it's just like what your husband was saying. I'm sorry. Is it Kevin? Is it? What's your name? Kevin. Okay. What Kevin was saying was like, like you come in at 18. So you're like, this is just how it's always been. And so and especially if you get married young and you don't have a lot of resources and support. And so your well is not very deep with what you're working with. And so really trying to help them, bring attention and awareness to like how these events have shaped, how this is preventing you from like tapping into your emotions, being aware of them, being in control of them. That is really just some basic education that happens first. And then helping them to create a safe space within themselves, within their community, finding healing for any type of trauma that they've experienced, whether pre-military or, during the military.
So we're going to take a quick break.
Okay.
And when we come back, we're going to talk about some solutions that we can maybe look to that might be things that you've heard before. Go to therapy, make sure you are communicating, writing, but then some things that might be a little outside of the box, and trying everything we can to make sure that our marriages, whether civilian or military based, are as healthy as possible. We'll be right back.
I have to turn my head until my darkness goes. I see a line of cars and they are painted black, with flowers and my love hope never to come back. I've seen people turn their heads and quickly look away.
You know the drill. You're making out, you start feeling your way downtown. One of you wants to make a move to Cunnilingus, but you don't have protection. Dental dams are hard to use, hard to come by, and condoms taste like, condoms. Hundreds of millions of people worldwide have STIs that can be transmitted via oral sex. So let me introduce you to Lorals, a first-of-its-kind product that provides protection, sexy style, and comfort. And it tastes like vanilla. Lorals for Protection are FDA approved for STI protection during oral-based activities. And Lorals for Pleasure are the perfect cross between sexy lingerie and kinky toys. These thin and incredibly stretchy single-use silky latex undies are worn during fingering, rimming, oral sex, tribbing, and more. Head over to mylorals.com to get your 4-pack today. Be sure to use my code for a discount at checkout. What's Your Position Podcast? All one word. And remember, stay safe, stay kind, and stay sexy with Lorals. Welcome back, fellow humans, to another Full Frontal. Joining us is Courtney, all the way from Germany. Guten Tag, Courtney. And
yes,
Shane.
Yes.
Danke, Shane, for being on.
Bitte.
We are talking about military spouses, what it's like to be married in the military from someone who's in the military, and also from an individual who does counseling for couples. And she does see a handful of individuals working with the Department of Defense, in the Department of Defense, in the military, or are married to someone who works in one of those areas. Before we went to break, we were talking about things that civilians may not realize exist inside of a military marriage. And at the break, you mentioned something. So can you tell us what it is you thought of that maybe people don't know about?
Yes. So most people don't realize that it is against the rules, and you can be kicked out of the military if you are married.
Dishonorably discharged?
Dishonorably discharged, yes. Lose your benefits. It is a court-martialable offense if you have sex with someone other than your spouse.
Okay. Question.
Okay.
How do they enforce this? Like if a spouse comes and says, my husband was deployed and cheated on me, or a husband comes home from war and walks in and his wife is sleeping with someone else, what do they do to the wife? She doesn't get,
nothing.
What do they do?
No, nothing. So it's only the service member that can be prosecuted. So like, for example, so if it was I'm not active duty, but my husband is. So if I was, having a relationship with somebody, not my husband, they can't prosecute me. But if my husband was, then and there was proof. And that's the thing, like it's very uncommon that this happens. It's usually most common in dual military, like both parties are military. So like I've heard of cases where it's, you know, they're in the same unit, they're both active duty, they're both married to other people, and like it's obvious. Yeah, like it's obvious that something's going on, and usually one of the spouses will like contact one of their commanding officers and show emails.
Here's a question. What if the spouses agree to it?
Doesn't matter.
So like, what if the spouses want their spouse to have sex with other people?
Doesn't matter.
Okay. So there can't be like a loophole of
there's no open marriage. There's no non-monogamy clauses. There's no
like what is the reasoning behind making a rule like that?
Is it patriarchy? Is it like religion? Is that it?
That's
tradition.
I mean, are you asking my personal opinion? Yes, but they see it as like an upholding like a morality, like an upholding a morality clause. That, you know, like you need to be above reproach or whatever. If you're single, you can have sex with anybody that you want. However, I think in the Marines, it may be in other branches as well, that if you are single and you have sex with like another, like another military member's spouse. So even though the spouse isn't active duty, but you know that they're married to somebody that's in the military, and you as a single person, that is unbecoming behavior or something. And so you can, I don't know if you can be discharged for that, but you can, there's some
sort of
repercussions. Yeah.
Okay. What? So the people who you are spending all of your time with, right? Yeah. This group that you now have to, because you're moving, right? So you meet these people and that's crazy. I'm literally I'm flabbergasted. So, okay. Yep. I'm going to give you my statistic. I'm going to tell you my statistic of the day now, because I just remembered and I don't want to forget again. But I said at the beginning, a survey showed that 3.9% of individuals in the military got divorced last year, which is double the amount of civilian divorces that were seen last year. So Mia won that one.
Good job, Mia.
It is 1.9%, almost 2%. There was 2% of other divorces in other sectors of the world, but the military had almost 4% of the divorces last year. So it's double. How can you help couples avoid divorce? What are some tools that you're having them implement? Like, are you having them like communicate more frequently through letters? Do you find that to be helpful, or like having because they can't really do weekly fucking date night because you never know what time it is in the place that you're at. So how do you help them navigate? What are some tools you have? Yeah. Maybe some that are normally in a toolbox and some that are not normally in a toolbox.
We can do that. So I think most of the time, not all MOSs, not all jobs have where it's super chaotic, but if you're able to find some predictability in your schedule, that I try to find, like encourage them to find. So if we know that like every Wednesday I get off at 5, but the other days it's super crazy, then focus on those days that you have the stability, the predictability, and try to do something intentional that fills both of your cups. And I think that's probably like the first step. Like, I guess we should reverse a little bit, is I try to help each person identify like what needs they're needing to be met and how the other person can do that. So it like the 5 love languages is a really popular one. I
love the 5 love languages.
Yeah. And there's some on them. Yeah. And there's, oh gosh, I was just reading an article about like a modernization of the 5 love languages. I haven't finished it.
Where they added an intellectual one.
Yes.
I loved it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so great. And so being able to work smarter and not harder. I think a lot of couples speak the wrong language. One spouse will be like, well, I'm like sending her flowers and I'm like bringing her these gifts back from like my TDYs. A TDY is a temporary duty station. So that's when they go to like for a week or 3 months, and they'll go somewhere temporarily and then they'll come back. So sometimes when a person is on TDY, they're like, oh, well, I'll bring you back like macaroons from Paris on my last day there or whatever. Or, I mean, they're usually not that glamorous. TDYs are usually like to the middle of nowhere, but I did have a friend who did that once. Her husband did that. I thought that was pretty cool. But
I'll bring you back a magnet from the airport.
Exactly. But if gifts isn't your love language, then like you're wasting your resources to like love your spouse well. And so really helping them to identify like, hey, could you like make a bunch of sticky notes and like leave one for your spouse before you leave in the morning? Like that, like there's little predictabilities that you can do, or, like every Wednesday she has lunch that she's going to bring to you. And then you guys can like have a 6-second hug or a 20-second hug or whatever it is, where you have that little bits, like finding those little bits. I think people try to think of like these grand gestures of like, okay, we got to get a babysitter, and then we got to go out, and then we got to go to a movie, and then we got to go to dinner. And really, if you just try to find the little openings and the little like sprinkles, like I think of it like sprinkles, find ways to sprinkle love through and like to love your spouse and support your partner. Like that's the best way to do it.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
I love that tool. There you go. Put that in your toolbox.
Yep. So that's a good one.
What else?
I'm a big fan of texting. I think that a quick text, there are some, especially if you're in intelligence, they literally have to put their phones like in a lockbox before they go in. So you can't really text them. So I suggest emailing or, and
like, do you recommend nudes?
That depends on what.
Maybe not in an email.
Yeah, probably not in an email.
Send all.
Reply all. Bro.
Okay, so like, I think you would not be fully honest and transparent if there wasn't the truth of like there's a digital footprint. So there's at some point whatever you put out into cyberspace or could come back or could whatever. Some people just don't give a shit, and that's totally fine. They're like, I will, like, you can see my whole body, my face and everything. Other times
I'm of that mind. I'm like, I do not care.
Yeah.
Like,
you just,
put that shit up on Pornhub or the internet. I don't care. I'm not ashamed, but
then send the news.
It's not an ashamed thing. It's just, some people are like, no,
like they could lose their jobs. Like teachers.
Exactly.
Like,
so then don't show your face. Show your face, right? I mean, there's lots of ways and you could get around it, but don't send the dick pics unless you know that turns your partner on or that.
Oh yeah, no, that's
right?
That's a big thing.
But like, if you're in a marriage, like sending sexts or like sending sexy photos so that like they are reminded of you when they're deployed or when they're where they are.
I love that idea. Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Yep. Or recording yourself. One of my favorite ones is to like, have you record yourself masturbating, like an audio, because you can't see it. It's not even a video. It's just the audio of your sounds.
That's actually super hot.
It's like ASMR.
I know. You're welcome.
That's a nice thing to get in the middle of the night. You're like, oh, damn.
Yeah. And then you can play it whenever you want.
Right. Because then it's not on the screen. So it's not like people are looking over your shoulder.
Exactly.
It's just audio in your ear.
Just put a little headphone in when you go to bed and enjoy it.
Oh, that's nice. Or like reading an erotic novel or something. That's
fun. Yes. Yep. Book on. Yep. Lots of great ways.
I'm a nerd. I want the books.
Yeah.
What else?
Like that are sex based or non-sex based?
Well, what about having the ability for the spouse to have an open relationship?
Yeah. So this is one that's pretty controversial in general, I think, especially within the marital therapy world and in the military world, especially since if you are in a military marriage and one of the partners is active duty and they're breaking the rules by engaging in an open marriage, that doesn't mean that their partner can't. So I think that can be a very viable and a very successful model, but it takes a lot of communication and a lot of intentionality and a lot of maturity to do that. It's not like a lot of
trust, a lot of vulnerability.
Yes, like, hey, you're deploying like next month. Like, do you care if I bang other guys while you're gone? Like that is absolutely not how that conversation should come up in any way. Please God, don't do that.
Yeah. No,
It's a conversation for, I mean, maybe not necessarily, you don't have to be at a therapist's office. You don't have to be at a counselor's office, but you definitely need to have the tools to be able to sit down with your partner and say, when you're gone, something is missing and it's causing resentment. It's causing anger. I am a very hands-on. I want to be taught. I want to be desired. I don't feel like a whole person and I'm resenting you and the military because of it. So it would be great if while you're deployed, we could discuss the possibility of me having an intimate partner, whether that be someone who takes me on dates or whether that be someone who I have sex with, or you do run the risk of, you know, falling in love with that person. And so that's another conversation that probably needs to be had about how long are we doing this is this open relationship continuing when I come home? Correct. Because that's something that you would want to, I mean, if, you know, your spouse has been gone for 7 months, I'm sure that you have, I mean, I'm going to make an assumption here, Courtney, but when your husband got back from being deployed, how much sex were you having? Like all of it or like none of it? Like what is the barometer there?
That's a really, I think there's a misperception that like, as soon as they get back, you're like, I'm just going to jump their bones all of the time. But it's so awkward. Like you haven't been around each other and like you haven't seen my body or touched or kissed me. And like for some people, they need like that build up. Like, okay, we're going to start with just like being in the same bed together and we're going to start. And so I always encourage couples to do whatever it is that they're most comfortable with, but to have the conversations of like a few weeks before they get home. And like my husband, I didn't know exactly when he was coming home, but having those conversations of like, hey, what's your expectation for the night you get back? Or what's the expectation for, you know, because they're dealing with so much. Like I mean, I was so annoyed with my kids because all they wanted to do was be around their dad. And all I wanted to do was have sex with him. And I was like,
no, that makes so much sense.
Go away.
Daddy need time.
Go
Get
away.
Out of here.
But they missed.
Who invited you? Oh, me.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah. That's right. And then, but it's like COVID time. And so it's not like I could send them to a friend's house to like, can you, and he got back January 2nd. So it's freaking cold outside. And I'm like, I'm going to have sex again.
Oh man.
It's been 7 months and now it's going to be 7 more. And he's right in front of me. Fuck.
Yep.
God. So that's an interesting like way to look at it too, is like, are you keeping any sort of intimacy alive while your partner is gone? And how do you do that? And then you have to talk to them about it. Cause if if your husband comes home and wants to have sex and you're like, you're a stranger, like I can't, that's traumatic in and of itself, just expecting that your partner's going to want to have sex with you. And like, then they don't. And you're like, ow.
Right. There's that expectation. I think a lot of times that happens with men too. Like, oh, well, of course he's going to want to have sex with me. And then
he's been around
doesn't,
a bunch of other dudes for 7 months and why wouldn't he want to see my tits? Like,
right. And so, but then if he's like, hey, like I just saw people get blown up day after day. And then there's that feeling of rejection and like, what's wrong with me? And then, right, it continues to erode. And so trying to be able to be as transparent with each other of like, man, I'm just not in the mental space right now. It's not about you, but we don't know that if you don't communicate that.
I saw this crazy statistic. Okay. So I tried to look up, what a dumb idea. I'm going to tell you how many fucking websites I went to. I tried to look up how many military people have PTSD. All of them? No. I found 3%. I found 30% a couple times. I found 90%. I found 50% a couple of times. Like the variation was maddening. Like, I could not get a straight. I went to like PubMed. I went to articles written in 2022. I looked at meta-analysis. Like, there's no answer for how many people in the military have. They say, I saw one number that I believe people who have seen combat have 90% of them have PTSD.
Sure.
Okay. That number I can understand because if you are in combat and you have to kill someone or you watch people die or your friend dies next to you or there's bullets, you're constantly in fight or flight. Guarantee you've got PTSD. Even if you don't have the symptoms, you probably have some scarring. So working on understanding that you're probably going to get that if you're deployed and you're in combat. So let's talk about what that looks like before you go so that you can already have some tools while you're there to process through that trauma. Do you help a lot of people who come back from service and are suffering from PTSD and that's what's causing the difficulty in their marriage?
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, so no. I mean, the short answer is no. Like I don't do because I'm not I'm not licensed anymore. And so a lot of people don't want to pay and invest in the, because that takes a lot of work and time. And so they'd rather go through like their insurance or through something that's covered. And I typically do more short-term stuff and PTSD treatments or like I'm trained in EMDR, like I'm level 2 certified in that. And so that's a great tool. But, a lot of people will tend to go to like a VA or their active duty.
Didn't you tell me, and I've heard this, that they've been treating PTSD with MDMA?
Yes. They're doing clinical trials with MDMA and psilocybin, which is mushrooms, and cannabis. I mean, they've been...
Didn't you tell me recently that after 4
treatments of pure MDMA and microdosing in people suffering from active like vivid PTSD, their PTSD symptoms significantly went down, like significantly.
The use of psychedelics in treating PTSD is it's phenomenal. Like it is so promising. I know that there's controversy around that as well, but man, I'm a huge fan of psychedelics, especially in
good for like natural therapy, like being able to
treatment resistant too.
Oh yeah. People who have taken everything. I mean, that's why they're using ketamine is in treatment resistant depression.
Would that be allowed in the military though?
Yeah. Right.
Tested for stuff like that?
No, frick no.
You'd probably have to be retired, I would imagine, or like out of the military.
So that they wouldn't be able to help someone.
Yeah. there's some stuff that happens during deployments that people don't talk about of like certain treatments with, but on board, no, you cannot do psychedelics and be active duty.
That's interesting. Mia just said, so they can't actively treat their PTSD. So it's not like you can experience
unless you're taking meds, but
right. You can't experience an active war zone, be involved in a bombing and then go to a room, get a microdose of MDMA and have your symptoms already be worked on. Right.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't just go away like that.
Right.
Either. There's probably going to be multiple times you get deployed or you're active, whatever. So it's just going to kind of keep.
I'm assuming as soon as they get some conclusive, like definitive, where everybody's like, okay, MDMA is a great tool. It would take so long for it to get into the military before they were
20, 30 years. I mean,
before they're like, okay, we can help.
People are getting. I know of a friend who they were a commander and they had to demote somebody who tested positive for marijuana use.
Wow.
Oh,
and they used it because they were grieving, dealing with severe grief and stress, and alcohol wasn't doing it, even because alcohol is legal.
Alcohol's legal,
but THC was, and they were able to function and be better, but pop positive on the drug test, and so now they're being demoted.
That's really fucking frustrating because alcohol. Like we have a friend who was in the Marines and now has like 6 DUIs and is just a drinking mayhem. And how great would that be if he was able to treat it with something like THC so that he didn't get so fucked up, right? When you are, do you have any clients that have asked you about open marriages and how to have that conversation?
Yes. Yes, I have.
And what do you do?
I feel like she's thinking.
She's like, oh God, that's a breach of
how
contract.
deep are we going to go down this rabbit hole?
So let's say Kevin and I come to you, okay? And we're letting you know, look, he's gone 6 months out of the year. That's just our schedule. That's his schedule. He has to go for 6 months out of the year, and I'm at home. He can't be in an open relationship, but I need something. I need something more, because when he's coming back, I'm mad because he's been gone, and I'm lonely while he's gone, and I'm blaming that on him. And I don't want to keep going down this road. What do you suggest? How do we open this?
Yeah. So I think getting thoughts on it, both people's opinions, like like from a morality perspective, you know, some people are like, well, you're cheating. You're breaking our vows. You're doing whatever. And some people are like, yep, no, I get it. Go to the I try to go to the insecurities first. So like, what's the fear that she's going to fall in love with somebody, that she's going to run off on somebody, that, and usually
someone's going to find out.
Fear is that, especially with men. Are we still there? Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry. It just paused.
That's okay. Usually a lot of times the fear.
Somebody's going to find out. Right.
Sure. There's some social shaming, but a lot of it is more like, is his dick bigger than mine? Is he going to be a better lover than me? Like that's really what it comes down to. Like, it's like, I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. And so then when I come back to this, you're not going to want me anymore because you've had this great whatever it is. And not everybody who wants an open marriage is wanting to just have a fuck buddy. Some people like, they just like, I want to go out on dates. Like while you're gone, I want somebody like to romance me. I want to be wooed. I want to be whatever, but I don't want to have sex with them. Or, you know, I've known people who they have arrangements where they're allowed to kiss and do oral sex, but they're not allowed to do penis and vagina sex. I mean, the rules are about as diverse as you can possibly imagine.
Yeah, you get to pick those. You get to
pick your rules.
Yeah, you do.
There's this
as long as it works for the two of you, I don't think it's anybody else's business.
There's this great visual that a therapist gave to me once where you are this, I'm holding it up so that like people can see me. I'm holding up one hand. This is you and all of your emotions and all of your wants and all of your fantasies and all of your kinks and all of your fetishes and all of your dislikes. This other hand is your partner and all of their likes and dislikes and kinks and fantasies and what they want, and what they don't want. There's got to be some overlap. There's that Venn diagram has to meet somewhere. So maybe it's not, hey, while I'm gone, get into a relationship with someone, fuck them in front, like in our bed, and introduce them to the children. Like, right. Like there can also not be alone. And don't you dare let a man look at you while I'm gone. There's gotta be something in the middle. Like maybe it is, I want someone to take me out to dinner and I want someone to kiss me goodnight. Or maybe it is, I'd like to go to a hotel once a month, go to a bar, get a drink, find somebody and have sex with them in a hotel room. Like find what works for your relationship. And maybe the guy is like, hey, I want you to send me a voice message of everything that he did to you and how good he made you feel. And I want to hear you masturbate to the sound of, or I want to hear the sounds of you masturbating because of the stories that you're telling me about him fucking you. And then he can be a part of it, or don't fucking tell me anything.
100%. It can be anything and everything you want it to be. But again, it's, if you see it as a threat to your relationship. Well, let me say this though. I really appreciate when one of the partners comes and says, I have a need. It's not physically possible to be met by you because you will not be here. I am begging you to help me figure out a way for this to be met so that we can still maintain our marriage. Like that takes a lot of courage, because the easy thing to do is to cheat. The easy thing to do is, honey, have a great time. I'll see you in 7 months. And you're fucking around on them on the side. And I'm not judging you hurt even more for doing that. Like I don't care. Like people's behavior, that is, everybody has the reasons for what they do. But I have seen it not work out so well when there is a lack of integrity in the marriage. And usually that is a result of cheating. And so is it hard to have these conversations? Yes, it is not easy. Society does not set us up for success.
Yeah.
We have been, programmed that one person should be able to meet all of your needs and be your main source of pleasure. And I think that is not only unrealistic, I think it is harmful. And then you have these situations where you're in these high stress, isolated situations, and then you're going to continue to deny this need of you. I see it as being really detrimental when they're not easy solutions, but they are workable solutions that can actually benefit your marriage. If that is your goal, to keep the marriage together.
Hell yeah. If the alternative is divorce or cheating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about opening it up.
Let's talk about compromise. Right. Yeah. Let's talk about something that we can do to not force that person into a life of sadness and resentment. Like, we are not fulfilling a basic fucking need.
Correct. Yep.
That is asinine. And then somebody comes home with all this trauma and we are insisting that they be everything that they weren't for the last 7 months.
Right. Yep. Yeah.
That's fucking insanity.
Yeah. I think it's important too, it's easy to be like, oh, this person is incapable of meeting this need. And so I'm going to have this other person completely fill it. That can be problematic when you're in a situation like, well, now they've returned and they're no longer in the same state, right? They come back, quote, damaged, or like there's something wrong with them, or right, they're struggling.
Or they're different in any possible, they're different. They've grown, they've changed, they've aged, they've seen things that have changed them. And we're not addressing this change, and we're expecting them to just be the person they were when they left.
Right. And so that's still, I think that there's a misconception that like, oh, well, they're not meeting my needs, so like, I don't need to pay attention to them. Like, again, if there's still a desire for that primary relationship to be preserved, that requires attention and that requires nurturing. And especially when one partner is struggling, it's not that you need to still deny your needs, right? That's important that you have those met too. But again, if your goal is to keep that marriage together and to have it be integrous, then it's important to figure out a way to really support the partner that's returning and like not like throw it in their face that like, yep, okay, well, I know that like you can't get your shit together, so I'm gonna go meet John because he's like awesome and like been banging me for the last 5 months. So
and you don't have the tools in your toolbox to be able to separate what you need from maybe lust and maybe confusion and some resentment that you have towards your partner.
Absolutely.
And instead of having a healthy open relationship with someone who understands you and your partner's boundaries, you're having a relationship with someone who thinks that they're the cat that ate the canary. They're having their cake and eating it too. And that is damaging for both partners. So it's absolutely. And it's not just a trope, hun. Like the military wives actually, military relationships have a higher rate of infidelity, unfortunately. Yeah. Yep. And it's not a trope. You were spot on when you said it. It's hard to be left alone, thinking your spouse is dead, can't talk to them, thinking, what are they doing? Not able to meet emotional needs, intelligence needs, intellectual, like parenting needs. You are the single parent, but they get all the accolades when they come home and you feel unloved and you feel unworthy. And then someone shows you a little interest and it's like those walls get just completely knocked down. So build the wall stronger, smarter, better. Yes. Make sure that wall includes everything that both you and your partners need, making sure that wall is built with honesty and is built with both of you in mind so that both of you can feel fulfillment in your marriage and outside of it.
Yep. Absolutely.
Even if that's friendships, right?
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah. I do find it interesting that it's totally fine for society to like, yes, like girl, like have your, like, go complain to your girlfriend and like go on a girls' weekend and like just overshare and just completely emotionally dump. But the minute it turns, quote, sexual, where there's any type of sexual, like kissing or hugging's okay, holding hands, that's okay, right? With two friends. But anytime it moves to like gratification, like now the genitals are getting aroused like that, then that's not okay. And so it's like interesting that I can be emotionally completely naked with you and share all of my intimacy of my marriage, all the intimacy of my life, but I can't have our genitals can't touch. Like that, then I'm crossing the line. Okay.
Or if it's somebody, especially if you go on a girls' trip and it's somebody of the same gender, society does not understand that when females are intimate, we're way more emotionally intimate with one another than men are. That's just the way that society has brought us up, was to chat with your girlfriends, talk to your girlfriends. Oh my God, guess what he did? Da, da, da. And guys don't have that. So they don't have these emotional and intimate relationships with their friends, which I think is why there's a lot of like not only homoeroticism within male friendships, but also like homophobia within male friendships. Like, don't hug for too long, bro. Like, and girls pee in front of each other. And we like, you know, talk about, oh my God, look at this weird mole. And like how you have these needs and these intimate moments being met by female friends. But if you ever told anyone that you were aroused by those conversations, you are a leper and now have no friends. Like, or all of your friends are like, want to make out? Like, is that happening?
Yourself those friends.
Like, what do we do?
Yourself those friends.
So is this going on? Or I feel like,
can you send pictures?
I feel like relationships, people think of relationships so black and white. You're in a marriage or you have friendships, and those never cross. You have sex in your marriage and you have conversations in your friendships. And I sort of feel like if we flopped them, we'd have better relationships all around, right?
Or I think if you didn't limit them, if you didn't limit them.
Yeah. If you allowed both of them to exist within both of those spaces. I have a funny story I want to tell you really quickly, and then I have a question for you. So when Kevin and I were dating, his friend who was in the Marines came to his birthday. Do you know what the story is?
Oh, yeah. I was going to bring it up.
Oh, good. Do you want to tell the fucking story? Because it's actually better coming from you.
No, you'll probably tell it better.
All right. So this guy, not going to use his name, comes to Kevin's birthday, and it's his golden birthday. He turned 27 on the 27th. So we had a big party, and all of our friends were there. We were playing Guitar Hero. We were drunk. It was amazing. It was a great night. And his friend is like, Ashley, we active military and in the Marines. I'm going to do my best impression. Ashley, have you ever thought about getting married? And I'm like, bro, I'm dating your friend. Can you chill? And he's like, no. Listen. If you marry me, you get $10,000 and so do I. And then we get it annulled. And then you get to keep the money and I get the benefits. And I was like, I'm not marrying you. Enter name here. I'm not going to marry you. And he's like, no, we'll get it annulled. I'm like, I'm in love with your best friend.
Right.
I'm not marrying you for $10,000 fucking dollars. Is it really $10,000? Did I miss out on $10,000?
I don't know. I've never heard of the $10,000.
What is the benefit of marrying?
I thought he was saying if he dies. If he dies, you get money.
The death benefit.
Yeah, the death benefits or something like that. Remember, this was like 15 years ago. So if that,
you do. So like, if you are single and like enlisted, you have to live in the barracks. But if you are married, then you get money for like being married. Like you get more money because you have a dependent, and then you can live off base or live in better housing, like in like family housing or live off.
That might have been why I was trying.
This fuck's just trying
because then after Ashley was like,
he wouldn't stop all night long. I was like,
then he went over to her other friend and started doing the same thing to her, and she was like, I don't know, maybe
she questioned.
She actually was thinking about it.
She's like, no, because that's like a trope, right? It's like, we'll get married for the benefits, but then fall in love along the way.
They're called dependas. Yeah, because you get, it's socialized healthcare in the military, so it's free healthcare. So there was like a movie on Netflix, I think, called
Purple Hearts.
Yes, Purple Hearts. Yes.
Oh, Mia was like,
with the
I know exactly what we're talking about.
Girl, we gotta talk about it. Yeah,
let's talk about it. Yeah, because
and she had this girl had diabetes or something, and she married an active duty person because she didn't have health insurance and wasn't going to be able to get her.
Because we're making people pay for medications that they can't have any control over.
Yeah. Yep. I know I have a lot of thoughts on that. But anyway, so then there was like this controversy of like, oh my gosh, people are marrying into like these military members just for their benefits. And yeah.
It doesn't really, does it happen? Do you see it happen a lot?
No, but to be fair, like I'm married to an officer. And so most of that is not
salute you. I'm gonna salute you.
No, nobody salutes me. I mean, I have had somebody salute me at the gate a few times because I have my husband's rank is on my spouse ID.
Oh, fun.
And I'm like, I'm not one of those people where I wear my husband's rank. I'm like, you don't need to call me Colonel, blah, blah, like please don't do that. Like,
have you almost ever gotten in like trouble or something and then like flash 10, as they say, when you're like a cop, but in the military, you're like, do you know who my husband is?
Do you have any idea who my husband is?
Who my husband is? You want to get fucked up?
Yes, because the doctors are known for fucking people up. No.
I'll fucking take your lungs out. Bro.
That's right. You want your asthma inhaler? Do you want me to take away your asthma inhaler?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Have fun on your next asthma attack, bro.
Have fun
CPAP.
breathing, motherfucker.
Yeah, no CPAP machine for you. Sleep apnea. Okay.
Have fun with that.
Oh my God. Courtney, as always, it is incredible to speak with you. I am just so very grateful for this conversation, for you being so open and vulnerable. I feel like the military is like shrouded in some sort of veil of secrecy. So
enlightening.
So it was very enlightening, actually.
Good.
Very.
I'm so glad.
Yeah, your tips are phenomenal for military enlisted spouses and for civilian spouses. I think that all of those tips are super helpful. So make sure you take what serves you, leave the rest. Use your toolbox to your advantage and plant what goes in your garden. Not everything that we talk about on this show is for everyone. So just take what serves you. Please remember to follow us on What's Your Position Podcast on Instagram and TikTok. If you want to send us an email, What's Your Position Podcast at Gmail. I want to give a big fat shout out because I looked at our statistics the other day. First of all, we have a buttload of downloads. So thank you everyone for downloading and for listening to our episodes. Please make sure you share with a friend. We absolutely love when you do that. But California was ousted as the #1 state people listen to us in.
Ooh.
Right.
I know. For the first time, we are being listened to in a different state more than where I'm from, which is where most of my friends live. So Colorado, get the fuck up for motherfucking Colorado, downloading a buttload of our episodes. So but
aren't there a lot from Germany too?
There are actually a ton from Germany. Is climbing the ranks. So as soon as we release these episodes, we're probably going to get a much more. Actually, Germany and Britain usually fight for the #1 spot of my international listeners. So that's pretty awesome.
How many countries have we been listened to in? 50?
61.
Dang.
I want to say. I know. A lot of India, because a lot of my episodes have sexual innuendos. So I think it gets looked up and they think the #1 downloaded episode is I'm coming. The female orgasm opened up and rubbed out. And so I think that people think it's just me on a podcast coming. Spoiler alert, it's not.
But I think
not yet. There could be a part 2. Yeah.
So thanks to Germany and thanks Colorado. We love you so very much. Courtney, would you like to plug anything before you go?
Yeah. So I would love to connect with anybody on social media. I'm on, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook at Courtney Boyer Coaching. And then I just recently published a book called Not Tonight, Honey, Why Women Actually Don't Want Sex and What We Can Do About It. So feel free. That's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Apple Books.
Hell yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And we have a podcast all about that book that we released. So please go back and listen to that episode. It's wonderful. Courtney, thank you. We love you. Thank your husband for his service. And we love all of our military friends who listen. Thank you all for your service. You do a great deed for this country. Yes, we really do appreciate you here at What's Your Position. We are absolutely in love with our service members, men and women who do all of the amazing jobs and keep us safe. Thank you so much for your service. Stay safe, stay kind, stay sexy.
And when the band plays Hail to the Chief, they point the cannon at you. It ain't me. I ain't no Senator Song. It ain't me.
What's Your Position podcast represents the opinions of Ashley Weller and her guests. The content here should not be taken as medical advice and is intended for education and entertainment purposes only. Views and opinions expressed in the podcast are our own and do not represent that of our places of work. While we make every effort to ensure the information we are sharing is accurate, we welcome any comments, suggestions, or correction of error. Stay safe, stay kind, and stay sexy.
Darling, darling, you know that we are sold out. This is fading, but the band plays on now. We're crying, crying, so let the velvet roll down, down. No heroes, villains, one to blame. While wilted roses fill the stage, and the thrill is gone. Our debut was a masterpiece. Our lines we read so perfectly, but the show, it can't go on.